This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the top news in the world of sports. My name is Ben Brown. Anthony is not in the studio today, just out of town for the weekend, so he will be back next week. I want to apologize right away. The audio might sound a little funny. We're actually changing studios here at the podcast network, so we're in sort of a transitional period where we're trying to set up a brand new studio, take down an old studio, change locations. So in the studio right now, we normally would have all the foam up around the room to take away things like echoes and everything like that. But it's actually gone. So we're obviously setting up the new studio, so we're changing the foam around. So in this studio, we don't have any foam up, so you can probably hear a lot of echoes. I mean, I can hear it myself. It's kind of weird just listening to myself talk, but it'll be okay. We'll have to just power through it and just go on with the shows. Hopefully, we will be in the new studio sooner rather than later, so we won't have to deal with the sort of sound quality as long as I hope, but we'll have to wait and see. This is the first time I'm coming in and looking at it, so it's kind of spooky in here. It feels kind of like I'm in a haunted room or something, but it'll be okay. We'll have to just power through it. Anyways, guys, want to talk a lot of great things here on the show. It is a Football Friday, of course, this December 16th. It's crazy to think that we're just 9 days away from Christmas, just a week and a half, a little over a week, or a little over 2 weeks, until 2017. I feel like 2016 just started, but it's gone by really quickly, and now we just have just a little over 2 weeks left until we're looking at 2017. But anyways, I want to start off with the show, although it is a Football Friday. I want to start off with the show talking about basketball. In particular, the sports world and the basketball world lost one of its great members of our community last night, and that's longtime Turner Sports TNT sideline announcer Craig Sager. He did finally lose his battle with cancer. Unfortunately, he died at the age of 65. Turner went on to say that Craig Sager was a beloved member of the Turner family for more than 3 decades, and he has been a true inspiration to all of us. This is what David Levy, who's the president of Turner Sports, said. There will never be another Craig Sager. His incredible talent, tireless work ethic, and commitment to his craft took him all over the world covering sports. While he will be remembered fondly for his colorful attire and the TNT sideline interviews he conducted with NBA coaches and players, it's the determination, grace, and will to live he displayed during his battle with cancer that will be his lasting impact. Our thoughts and prayers are with Craig's wife Stacy and the entire Sager family during this difficult time. We will forever be Sager strong. Craig Sager, to me, I'm still pretty much a young guy, be 24 in April. So for me, he's always been that guy that I've always seen on the sidelines. I've never not watched a basketball game on TNT and not seen Craig Sager on the sidelines covering. They talked about his fancy attire. He always wore those unique, colorful blazers and tie combos that always made him really stick out and be unique to some others. He was just really a fun, upwilling guy that was always positive, never worried about cancer. Obviously, he knew his chances were not good to win his fight, but it didn't affect him. It never affected him. He was always really positive, really upbeat, always trying to get back to work as soon as he could and do his job. And that's going to be, to me, the lasting impression I will always have of Craig Sager, is that he didn't let something like this get to him. Almost like Stuart Scott did, who passed away earlier this year. Alex and I have talked about it on the show as well. But he wasn't someone that let his situation get to him. He's like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll continue doing my work. I was happy to see him be able to cover the finals last year for ESPN. something really nice that ESPN let him do. Obviously now was his last finals, so I guess it's a good thing he was able to do that before he passed away yesterday. But Craig Sager will surely and definitely be missed. So rest in peace to the legend Craig Sager. My thoughts and prayers goes out to his family, his friends, all of his colleagues at TNT, really just the basketball world. They did a great job of honoring him last night. Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors was a longtime commentator at TNT, so he obviously has a really good relationship with Sager as well as some of the other guys there at Turner Sports. So before their game against the Knicks, which they actually won 103-90. I'll be talking about sort of the games last night and the top takeaways. But anyways, he did like a standing ovation, a round of applause for Sager. He went on the microphone before the game and just said a ton of great things. He summed it up absolutely perfectly. So that was a class act. The Milwaukee Bucks were playing a home game against the Chicago Bulls last night, and for warm-ups, the Bucks players wore shirts of Sager's suit and blazer tie combo for his acceptance speech at the ESPYs, for his award, for his courage and everything. So I thought that was a great display to honor Craig Sager. And then really around the league, they just kind of did moments of silence for him because he's covered really all these teams, all the coaches. Even Greg Popovich of the Spurs was a little choked up about the passing of Sager. For a guy who normally is not a big fan of media and does not want to talk to media, even he had some really nice things to say and actually said more than just a couple of words. So that was great to see. Even a guy like Greg Popovich, who doesn't ever really say anything, had something really nice to say. So, like I said, my thoughts go out to Craig Sager and his family. Rest in peace, my man. You will surely be missed, and there will never be anyone else like you. So, forever Sager strong. So now when you look at some of the games here in the National Basketball Association last night, the Milwaukee Bucks, as I mentioned, did have a home game against the Chicago Bulls. The Bucks improved to 9-6 at home, 12-12 overall with a 108-97 victory over the Chicago Bulls. Couple of really standout performers for the Bucks, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. He had 30 points, 14 rebounds, as well as Jabari Parker, the standout couple years ago out of Duke. He had 28 points. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he leads the Bucks in every offensive statistical category. He's literally a do-it-all for them. The Bulls do drop to 13-12, so not a bad year. Dwayne Wade, 20 points to go along with 6 assists. And also Jimmy Butler, 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists for the Bulls. Like I said, 13-12 now. The New Orleans Pelicans pick up a huge win over the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers are really struggling, especially on the road. They're 3-10 on the road, 13-14 overall. A team that to me has been really disappointing. I thought the Pacers would be much better than they have been this year. But, I mean, there is still time to turn it around. But 13-14, just under 500, not having that good of a season. The Pelicans also not having a good season either. They sit at 9-18. But Anthony Davis, yet again, a monster game last night. 35 points, 16 rebounds, and 5 blocks to lead the Pelicans. Also, the rookie out of Oklahoma, Buddy Hield, chipped in with 21, 5 of 8 from 3. And Drew Holiday, 16 points and 14 rebounds. The Pacers were led by Miles Turner. He had 26 points to go along with 8 boards. And Jeff Teague with 21 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds for Indiana. But they do not get the job done. They do lose 102-95. The Denver Nuggets pick up a huge win over the Portland Trailblazers, 132-120. Denver, absolutely monster offensive night. They're 10-16 overall, 4-7 at home. They had 8 players in double figures last night, led by Danilo Gallinari's 27 points. He also hit 3 3-pointers. Monster game for him and the rest of the Nuggets. The Portland Trailblazers really struggling, 13-15. This is a team that's been in the playoffs the last couple of years. Damian Lillard did have 40 points and 10 assists last night in a losing effort, and C.J. McCollum also led the way in that backcourt with 23 points. When you look at some other games in the National Basketball Association, the Spurs pick up their 14th road win of the season. They now sit at 21-5 after a 107-92 victory over the Phoenix Suns. Kawhi Leonard and Pau Gasol lead the way for San Antonio with 18 points each. Really just an overall balanced night. 5 people in double figures for San Antonio. For the Suns, Devin Booker had 17 points. He also hit 2 of 6 from 3. not too much. I mean, Eric Bledsoe did have 14. Marquise Chris, the rookie out of Washington, did have 10 points. But it's not a really good night for the Suns. They are now 8-18 overall, 4-8 at home. And then the nightcap was the Golden State Warriors 103-90 victory over the New York Knicks. Warriors improved to 23-4 on the season. 103, you're thinking, okay, like Curry probably had a good night. Kevin Durant probably had a good night. JaVale McGee actually outscores Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. JaVale McGee had 17 points. Kevin Durant only with 15, did not shoot too well, 7 of 18. And Stephen Curry shoots equally as bad. He had 8 points. He only shot 3 of 14. He did have 2 3-pointers to go, and he also had 10 rebounds and 8 assists. So not a bad night, but just scoring-wise, not too much. Klay Thompson led the way for the Warriors, 25 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He also made 4 3-pointers. The Knicks, and in particular, Kristaps Porzingis, was really, really amped up to play this game, especially against Draymond Green. He wanted to go against a top defender. Well, Porzingis did not get the best of Draymond Green. Only 8 points last night. He also shot 4 of 13 from the field. Not a really efficient night. The leading scorer for the Knicks, at least in their starting, was Brandon Jennings, only with 10 points. He shot 4 of 13. He had 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Just not really a good night for the Knicks. They're now 14-12 on the season. Still having a pretty good year, but when you're playing a team like the Warriors, especially when you're going from West Coast to East Coast, just it's really, really tough. I mean, the Warriors, we all know how good they are. But anyways, that's going to conclude my first segment of the show. After the break, we're going to talk a lot of football. We had Thursday Night Football last night, the Rams and Seahawks, and we will also preview the rest of the NFL games this weekend right after the break at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
The Seattle Seahawks clinch the NFC West last night with a huge victory at home, 24-3 over the Los Angeles Rams. Russell Wilson leads the way for Seattle, 229 yards with 3 touchdowns. Also, Tyler Lockett having a pretty good last few weeks, sort of solidifying himself as another top target for Seattle in the wide receiver position. 7 receptions for 130 yards and 1 touchdown. The touchdown coming on a 57-yard pass from Wilson. The Rams now sitting at 4-10. They've lost 9 out of their last 10 games. They were 3-1 at one point. It's crazy to think that that was the case. This is the first game since Jeff Fisher has been fired on Tuesday. So Jared Goff really, really struggling. 13 of 25, 135 yards. Didn't throw any interceptions, but, I mean, he didn't even have an offensive touchdown yet again. The Rams' offense just literally in shambles. I mean, there's a lot of bad offensive teams. Think about the Jets are pretty bad right now. Obviously, the Browns have not won a game. The Rams, the Niners, but I don't know if any offense is as bad as the Rams is right now. Todd Gurley had 14 carries for 38 yards. One of those carries was a 22-yard run. So if you take that out, he had 13 carries for 16 yards. The offensive line just literally cannot create any sort of running room at all. And the defense can only do so much when they're on the field every single snap of the game almost. It's not a good situation for LA. They're definitely in a transitional period. They're just like I said, not a good team. The Seahawks, although 24-3 does look like a dominant victory, yet again, they could not run the ball. Thomas Rawls, 21 carries for 34 yards, so he's averaging only 1.5 yards a carry, so not another good night for Seattle running. Overall, in general, 30 carries for 72 yards as a team, so a 2.4 yard per carry average. And one of those was on a fake punt by John Ryan, which is a 26-yard gain. So if you take that out, I mean, that even puts those numbers lower. So just not a good running for Seattle. But like I said, they do win the game, and they do clinch the NFC West. They're at 9-4-1 right now. They are currently third in the standings in the NFC because they are behind from Detroit, who are 8-4, also the Giants, but also then the Cowboys with that number 1 seed right now. If they do get a victory on Sunday night against Tampa Bay, they will solidify themselves as the number 1 seed. But we'll have to wait and see. I will preview that game and more. But anyways, still talking about some of the takeaways from last night's game. A couple of things. Number 1, those color rush jerseys. We've seen that all year long now. There's been some pretty bad ones. Personally, I was not a fan of the Seattle Seahawks neon highlighter green jerseys last night. I do like the green in their jerseys, but not the whole entire jersey. I would have preferred if maybe the green was a little darker, kind of like a throwback Philadelphia Eagles-esque jersey. Than that, I thought that color would have looked good. But the color they went with last night, just like super bright neon green jersey, and the pants matched it, the socks. They look like just running around highlighters out there. I wasn't a big fan of it, but I mean the color rush jerseys, I'm a fan of those. I do like how they kind of change up jerseys for one time for every single team. It's something to obviously get you a little more excited. I'm sure the players like changing up their jerseys, getting a little more flashy. Think about what Oregon used to do all the time in college. Now a lot of teams do it in college, but it was kind of Oregon who started that trend of wearing these flashy, fancy jerseys and helmets. So I guess it's a good thing. I kind of like it. Seattle, like I said, 9-4-1, 7-0 at home this season. They are the lone team to be undefeated at home. The Rams 4-10, 3-5 on the road. Jared Goff did take a really nasty hit late in the game. He was trying to kind of like run towards an end zone, but he was kind of like made a rookie mistake. He didn't really know what to do, if he should run out of bounds or try and push towards the pylon. And then he kind of got lost, like, oh, what do I do? Like, I think I'm just going to stay in bounds. And then he got absolutely destroyed by Richard Sherman, which forced Goff out of the game. He's now in concussion protocol, so it's definitely not a good situation. But, I mean, nevertheless, the Seahawks do win 24-3. And, I mean, the Seahawks usually struggle with the Rams, but the Rams are just kind of in disarray right now. And they did not have any trouble last night, 24-3, won by 21 at home. So now that takes us into our slate of games from this weekend. We actually have a game tomorrow. We do have a Saturday night matchup. We have the Dolphins. They will be battling the Jets. Gotta like the Dolphins in that game. And then for Sunday, we have the Packers and Bears. Very important game for the Packers, trying to keep pace in the NFC. They sit at 7-6, although they are on a 3-game winning streak. Aaron Rodgers dealing with a little bit of a calf injury. It's going to be super cold out there in Chicago. The forecast projection is about 6 degrees. So, I mean, no snow or anything, which I guess is a good thing. But playing in cold weather, nothing that Aaron Rodgers is not used to doing. The Packers should be able to handle the Bears, no problems whatsoever. The Jacksonville Jaguars will be going on the road to face the Houston Texans. Houston currently tied atop their division along with Tennessee. So a game over Jacksonville, who's 2-11, probably on their way to firing Gus Bradley. So Houston are needing a really important win here, trying to still battle. Even the Colts are just a game back. So the Browns, will they ever pick up a win? I don't know, maybe. They're facing the Bills this week. 6-7 are the Bills. The Browns 0-13. I really don't see it. I think the Browns are they're destined to go 0-16. That's literally the definition of the Cleveland Browns this season. The Philadelphia Eagles in a battle of the birds, they will be going into Baltimore and take on the Ravens. The Tennessee Titans will be going to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Tough game there for Tennessee, having to face the Chiefs, who played last Thursday, so they have a little bit more rest in a very tough stadium in Kansas City. Probably the matchup of the weekend, the Detroit Lions and the New York Giants, both at 9-4. The Lions going into East Rutherford, New Jersey. The Giants coming off another big win over Dallas, the only team to defeat Dallas this year, and they've actually done it twice. The Indianapolis Colts will be going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Big game for both teams. The Pittsburgh Steelers are battling the Cincinnati Bengals at Paul Brown Stadium in Ohio. The Saints will travel out west to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona and really the Saints, in my eyes, both teams that are just kind of done with this season. Don't really have much chances. I would expect a shootout in this game, honestly. I think both offenses are going to light it up. The San Francisco 49ers and their 12-game losing streak will go to the Georgia Dome to take on the first-place Atlanta Falcons. The New England Patriots will battle the Denver Broncos. That's an important game for Denver. I'll talk about that a little bit later. The Oakland Raiders, after their loss to Kansas City last week, will be going down south to take on the Chargers at Qualcomm Stadium. As I said, our Sunday night matchup is the Dallas Cowboys hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay on a 5-game winning streak. Dallas just had their 11-game winning streak snapped last week. And our Monday night matchup is the Carolina Panthers and the Washington Redskins. We will preview that on Monday after we recap these games this weekend. So I want to start with the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Tennessee at 7-6, the Chiefs at 10-3. I like the Chiefs in this game. I think they're going to be able to handle Tennessee, no issues whatsoever. The Titans really surprised me last week with their victory over the Denver Broncos 13-10. A game where their offense really struggled. Marcus Mariota held under 100 yards passing. DeMarco Murray had a pretty good game. He ran for about 90 yards and a score. But Kansas City are just riding high right now. I really do think they're the second best team in the AFC, the team that will be able to challenge the New England Patriots more than any other team. They're playing at home, which is a tough place to play. They've only lost that one game this year, and that was kind of that fluky game to Tampa Bay a few weeks back. Like I said, a couple more days rest. Tennessee need an important victory if they want to keep pace with Houston in the AFC South. But I think the Chiefs are going to be able to win this game. No problems whatsoever. I trust them more. Alex Smith not going to turn the ball over. Their defense makes a lot of plays. Tough stadium. It's going to be cold, about 13 degrees. I like Kansas City. I'll say a low-scoring game, though. I don't see either of these offenses really lighting it up. To me, the matchup of the weekend is definitely the Detroit Lions going in to New York to take on the Giants. Like I said, both teams sitting at 9-4. The Lions really needing to keep pace. They're chasing both Minnesota and Green Bay just a couple of games back, and they're actually going to be playing both those teams in the last few weeks of the season. The Giants are technically still alive in the NFC East, but with a win, the Cowboys will clinch the division. So the Giants kind of still battling, but they're definitely looking at a wild card position right now. For me, a couple of things I'm going to be looking at in this game is how does the dislocated and torn ligaments middle finger of Matthew Stafford's right throwing hand affect him in this game? Matthew Stafford has been so clutch this season, especially in the fourth quarter. Seems to just lead them every single week to a fourth quarter comeback. He's right up there at the MVP race with some other guys. But how much will that finger affect him? We've seen Derek Carr, his pinky looks like it's maybe affected him a little bit. And your pinky you don't necessarily use as much as one of your interior fingers, like your middle finger. So we'll have to see if that affects Stafford, especially in an outside game. He's going to be wearing a glove. Forecast projections look like there might be some rain, maybe 50, 54 degrees. So not terribly cold, but the weather might have an effect on the game. So we'll have to see if Stafford can create any magic with sort of being hindered a little bit. The Giants played absolutely terrible last week on offense. Really just the one play was the long touchdown to Odell Beckham. Their defense really stepped up and carried them last week. So you have to ask yourself, can they do the same thing against Detroit this week? As a Packer fan, I really hope that the Giants do win this game because obviously we're trying to chase the Lions in the NFC North. I'm going to take the Giants not just for that reason, but because I think the finger will maybe affect Stafford a little bit. They are on the road. Eli Manning and company played really bad last week. I don't think they put up 10 points again. I think they'll do a lot more than that. So I think the Giants will win a close game. We'll have to see if Stafford can lead them late. I'd imagine if the Giants are winning in the fourth quarter, I'd be worried because all Matthew Stafford seems to do is win games in the fourth quarter when they're losing. So we'll have to wait and see, but I will take the Giants. I just have a little more faith. I think the finger will have an issue with Stafford, and we'll have to wait and see. I want to preview the Patriots in Broncos game. The game is in Denver, so a little cold, 29 degrees. Obviously, you have the thin air out there in Colorado. The Broncos kind of reeling right now at 8-5, in danger of dropping to 8-6. They still have two more tough games. They play Oakland as well as Kansas City. So if they drop this game, drop those two games, they'll be at 8-8, and they will be out of the playoffs. So they need a very important victory. The Patriots are unbeaten on the road. They are 6-0 on the road. I just don't have any faith in Denver right now. I really don't. Their offense literally cannot withstand a drive. They can't run the ball whatsoever. They had 18 yards rushing last week. LeGarrette Blount has 14 touchdowns on the season to go with over 1,000 yards rushing. I would expect him to have a big game, at least one touchdown. Tom Brady and company, they did just pick up Michael Floyd off of waivers after he got cut by Arizona following a DUI earlier this week. So I don't think Michael Floyd will necessarily be ready to play for New England this week, but possibly next week and towards a playoff push. I think that's an absolutely monstrous move for New England, a great, great move. A big, solid, strong wide receiver who has produced in the past with Arizona. You're missing Gronkowski already, so I think that's a great addition. You already have Julian Edelman who can kind of work his way in the middle of the field, pick up those key 7-8 yard receptions, especially on third down. Chris Hogan has been playing pretty well as of late. I just trust New England a lot more than Denver. I know Denver's defense is good, but their offense really can't keep them in games right now. They gave up 13 points last week to Tennessee, and they still found a way to lose the game. So I just can't trust the Broncos right now. I will take the Patriots. And you look at Sunday night, Tampa Bay on a 5-game winning streak battling the Cowboys, who are 11-2. The only team to beat the Cowboys this year has been the Giants, of course. I'll take Dallas. Just have more faith in them. Tampa Bay's not bad. Their defense has been playing really well during this 5-game winning streak. I think they'll be able to slow down Dallas, Dak Prescott, and Ezekiel Elliott a little bit, but I just have more faith in the Cowboys. They've consistently shown all year long that their offense with these two rookies has been able to lead teams and just dominate teams left and right, with the exception of the Giants, that is. The Cowboys offense kind of struggling a little bit last 2 weeks. Only 7 points and then 17 the week before that against Minnesota. Playing some good defenses. Like I said, Tampa Bay's defense is not a pushover. I'll take Dallas. I think the game will be close. I think Jameis Winston will do enough to keep his team alive. He's having a pretty good year. 3,300 yards and 23 touchdowns. Mike Evans, 1,100 yards and 10 scores. So I think Tampa Bay will do enough to at least keep the game close, put up some points, but I just have more faith in the Cowboys. I just trust them a lot more, and I think they will be able to win the game and clinch that number 1 seed in the NFC. All right, guys, so that will conclude our football segment for the show. We'll take our last break, and we'll be talking some college football. We actually have some bowl games starting up tomorrow, as well as a team that is in a bowl game but might not be playing in it for a different reason. So we'll be right back after the break talking that college football news.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So the Minnesota Golden Gophers are scheduled to play in the Holiday Bowl on December 27th. Well, it looks like this might not be the case. So the Minnesota football players yesterday announced that they would be boycotting all football activities in the wake of suspensions this week of 10 of their teammates. So the school did not specifically announce why these players were suspended, but it kind of relates back to a Title IX investigation about an alleged sexual assault case, which is totally different from like a police investigation about the same thing, which was earlier this season on September 12th. So when you're looking at some of this situation here, so a statement made yesterday by the senior wide receiver Drew Waldekarski said that the boycott will remain effective until due process is followed and suspensions for the all 10 players are lifted. So basically they're saying that while this process is going on, let us play. Nothing's been set in stone yet. Like, there's no reason you should be suspending these guys right now. Because of that, we're not going to be scheduled to play in the Holiday Bowl on December 7th or 27th. I'm sorry. So basically, the school and the president, and they're also unhappy because the president and the athletic director, these players sort of went to them and said, like, what's going on? Like, what are we going to do? And then they didn't even say anything. They basically told them, like, nothing. They wanted answers, and they did not get them. So because of that, they're also unhappy. So they're scheduled to not play in the Pacific Life Holiday Bowl on December 27th. If Minnesota were to not play, obviously, then they'd have to figure something out. They're looking at maybe putting Western or Northern Illinois in. They're going to be facing Washington State. It's the National Funding Holiday Bowl. All these bowl games. This is the one thing I hate about the bowl games. I love the bowl games. It's great that they're there, but there's too many of them. If you win 6 games, you get into a bowl game. Like we have bowl games tomorrow starting that we're actually going to not necessarily preview, but just mention. A lot of these teams I don't know literally anything about. Probably the biggest one is Houston and San Diego State. That'll be a good game. But most of these bowl games, if you win 6 games, you're in a bowl game. And I know why they do it. It's all about money and all that stuff, and I get it, and it all makes sense. But a lot of these bowl games are just kind of weird and bizarre, why they even get in. But it's all about, so the National Funding Holiday Bowl, December 27th. If Minnesota definitely withstands their boycott, then Northern Illinois will be put in there to face Washington State. Obviously, I think Minnesota will be a much better game than Northern Illinois against Washington State, so I'll be hoping for that as a neutral fan. But we'll have to wait and see with how this sort of investigation is going on. A lot of weird investigations going on in college football right now. You have the Wake Forest incident where the radio broadcaster for Wake Forest is kind of leaking out insider information to a lot of these ACC schools like Louisville, and now Virginia Tech has come out and said they received insider intel. So it's kind of really, really weird going on in college football right now, and really at a bad time. The end of the season, you have the postseason, all these bowl games coming up, the national semifinals on New Year's Eve, so a couple of weeks away from that, and it's like, wow, like all these things are coming up right away. It's definitely not a good situation to be a part of. So, I mean, I don't know. It's definitely weird, but Minnesota in danger of not playing in the Holiday Bowl because their players are just boycotting it, and I guess you have to give them some credit for sticking up for their teammates and what they believe in. Definitely with due process as well. You're not guilty, proven guilty. You're not just put guilty. So I mean, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So looking at some of these bowl games now, just really quickly before we leave the show today, the Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl will feature in North Carolina Central as well as Grambling. These games are all tomorrow. You have the Gildan New Mexico Bowl. It'll be obviously New Mexico against UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio. You have the Las Vegas Bowl, definitely a bowl that I wouldn't mind going to. I've never been to Las Vegas. I definitely want to go there. It's definitely the best game of Saturday. It's Houston against San Diego State. Have to see how Houston will do without Tom Herman, now with Major Applewhite as their coach. He will be there coaching tomorrow against San Diego State. San Diego State, 10-win team this season, so not a bad team. You have the Raycom Media Calmia Bowl. That's Appalachian State versus Toledo. You have the Auto Nation Cure Bowl. You have UCF, Central Florida, against Arkansas State. You have the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, and that is Southern Mississippi against Louisiana Lafayette. That is at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. So it's definitely a good week. Bowl games are starting up. It's a moment to be happy about, something to look forward to. And bowl games really, even Monday, Tuesday, all of next week, the week after. Then you have the New Year's Day bowls. Well, really, it's January 2nd this year, since New Year's Day is on a Sunday. The NFL is going to obviously dominate that. But it's a moment to look forward to, a moment to look at and preview and talk about. College football is not over just yet. So, anyways, guys, that's going to end the show for us today as I lead you into your sports weekend. I'd like to thank you for listening. Once again, rest in peace, and my thoughts and prayers go out to Craig Sager and his family after we lost him yesterday at his battle with cancer at the age of 65. Definitely a bad situation, but my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. As I said, my name is Ben Brown. I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope you have a great day, a good weekend, and we will be back on Monday at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Goodbye, guys.